Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq. Joining me is Mark Marex, Senior Index Specialist with Nasdaq Index Research for our monthly review of our major global indexes here at Nasdaq. Mark, it's great to see you as always. Welcome back to Trade Talks.
Thanks, Jill. Great to be here.
And if we take a look at our first slide here, our major global indexes, it's no surprise to see for the month of June, those growthier tech indexes did accelerate.
Yeah, talking about the Nasdaq 100 recently, I observed that the reflation trade maybe is winding down and kind of on its last legs. U.S. government bond yields are much lower now than they were about 3-4 months ago, when people were thinking that was the signal for reflation, inflation, and cyclicals and value to be outperforming for a long period of time. So, you can see here on this breakdown, start on the right-hand side, you've got Europe and Asia, as well as other DMX, the US, all recording slightly negative months of performance in June. Those had been kind of outperforming earlier in the year. Emerging markets barely flat. And then you can see large cap having a big resurgence, right? Outperforming mid and small caps, which have been kind of leading the way for performance for a while. And then on the left-hand side, you can see that Nasdaq 100, just the tech sector names within the Nasdaq 100, it's about 55% of the index. That was actually the best performing featured index, while two of the worst performers by far were the gold silver sector. PHLX index down almost 14%, by far the worst performing index. And then the banks, right? KBW Bank Index down just over 6%. That's another value, interest rate sensitive, cyclical sector that had been outperforming for a while, really took a turnaround, cooling off last month.
And Mark, if we take a look at our next slide here, when we look at the thematic ETFs with that focus on tech, wow, cloud computing really had the performance.
Yeah, I mean, you compare this slide with the previous, right? A lot less red on this one. In fact, the only one that was down in this suite of thematic and tech indexes that we have at Nasdaq was the Global Wind Energy Index, which was down just about 0.5%. Not exactly a horrible month for that one. Really, the whole kind of thematic tech as well as green energy, clean tech space has been having a really solid stretch of performance this year. Even despite the fact that last year was such a big outperformer. And what I've highlighted here is, again, that BVP Nasdaq Emerging Cloud Index, best performer overall of these 70 or so kind of featured indexes that we track at Nasdaq, up almost 13%. Nasdaq Clean Edge Green Energy in second place there, up almost 11%. And then the other cloud computing index, the ICTA, also not too shabby, one of the best performers, up just over 8%.
And Mark, to wrap up here, let's take a look at some of the other ETFs when we think about global ETFs, green economy, even dividend and income.
Yeah, so, on the upper left, that's kind of the breakdown of the remaining green economy indexes. You can see kind of a divergence happening last month with solar, the Nasdaq OMX Solar Index really having a stellar month, up 14.3%. And, one of the best performers in the entire suite of indexes we have. As I mentioned, wind was kind of an underperformer. Water, not particularly interesting in terms of performance last month. And then on the right-hand side, you can see we have this suite of dividend and then kind of alternative forms of income indexes. And you can see kind of, an interesting divergence happening. The Credit Suisse Nasdaq Gold Flows Index down 6%. That income tied to, commodities tied to gold, which we mentioned earlier, was a big underperformer last month. So not a surprise to see that being the worst performer within that kind of dividend and income suite. And then you had a couple different indexes, the Nasdaq 7 handle, the tech dividend index, and then the Nasdaq 100 buy right, all up around 2% for the month. Not too shabby, all things considered, given we did see some struggles in those dividend achiever indexes, which again tend to overweight those value and cyclical, kind of older, more dividend, less growthy names. So pretty mixed bag of performance when you look at just that dividend and income suite.
All right, Mark, appreciate the insight as always. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.